Welcome back. Great to have you on WKYT. It's a question we all get asked at the checkout counter if we whip out the plastic, and that is debit or credit.
As Jennifer Hunter, Associate Extension Professor at UK, tells us, this question requires some thought, and you're going to help us with that.
That's
Thanks
right.
very much for coming in.
Thank you all for having me.
And the first thing is just to realize what choice you're making when you choose debit or credit.
Exactly. Right? So I think sometimes we just haphazardly answer, we don't even think about it or whatever it may be, but we're giving two different answers. So there is a difference if you say debit as if you say credit. So we need to think about what that difference is and think about when we should use credit versus when we should use debit.
So when should we use debit?
Okay, so when you authorize a debit purchase, that's essentially an online transaction. So that's immediately going to go through. And so times that you might do this, if you're at a retailer that requires immediate payment, so someone that might just say you have to have cash or check, they might also be willing to take debit as opposed to credit. Other times that you might want to use debit is if you're spending on a budget. So we have often talked a lot about budgeting, but it can help you be more mindful of your spending. The brain processes spending a little bit differently when we're spending with debit or credit, so we tend to be more mindful of our budget when we're on debit. So that's a good time. And then also if you just in general have trouble controlling your spending, so you might not be mindful about your budget, but you know you kind of struggle with spending or overspending in general, that it might be best to spend on debit to remain more mindful.
But you have to also be sure you write down that transaction, right?
Exactly. So it's not just using the debit card. You have to remember to record that you did make the debit so that you don't overdraw your bank account.
Yeah, that's an important part. What about credit? When do you do that?
Okay, so with credit, it's not necessarily an immediate charge. So we have more of those 30 days to pay it off. So there's a delayed transaction, or there's a delayed time before it hits. So we're more likely to want to use credit when we're making an online purchase, when we want something to be more secure, or if there's not this necessity for it to have this immediate payment. There's some more securities that come with spending on credit than spending on debit, and so your credit card comes with a few additional protections, and it is also easier to dispute. Although you can dispute both of them, it's a little bit easier to dispute a credit charge because you've not already paid the money out. So you're complaining before you pay it as opposed to complaining to get your money back, and so it's a little bit easier that way.
When we're in this tough time between summer and kids are back in school now and they're off to their activities, and the parents are often spending more on that, and the holidays are coming.
They are coming.
So people are beginning to think about it. What do you have to say about planning that process out so that you don't charge yourself up too much?
Well, right. So now is the perfect time to start thinking about those holidays that are coming. It seems so early, and we're just barely into the fall of the year. But as we start working towards that holiday season, being mindful of how much we're spending debit or credit either way, and starting to develop a budget for those fall activities and in those fall holidays. Often, we'll come at the beginning of the year and talk about the holiday financial blues. This is a good time to help avoid those. And even if we are spending on credit, it's still good to write those transactions down so you know how much you have going out, so that you're not shocked when that bill comes in at the end of the month.
Yeah, you don't want to have that happen.
No.
Thank you very much. Great advice.
Thank you all.
Appreciate it.